What up, world? Live on that with Mr. Be Great today, Lamar King Sr. Glad y'all tapped in with me. It's another all positive podcast. And Mr. Be Great today had some words of encouragement. And y'all already know I'm just going to jump right on in. And the topic of discussion today is saddled horses. Now y'all stay with me. Let me land, as they say. And I want to bring up this discussion because I watched this great movie last night called Concrete Cowboy on Netflix with Idris Elba. Y'all make sure y'all go check it out. And there's a scene in the movie. And matter of fact, let me let y'all check out the scene. Here's the scene.
Go break that horse. You know why we was able to break them horses so good?
Why? Come on, wow.
Come on, bro. Tell us. Tell them this. I got to pee.
People used to believe that breaking a horse meant crushing the will of the animal, dominating, making them believe that the only way it was going to survive was to submit, right? Now, black folks, we knew that a horse wasn't meant to be dominated. Horse was meant to be free. Only way you can realize its true spirit, its nature, through love.
Real rap right there.
And as you can see, the lady said that horses are supposed to be free. And love is the essential emotion that every person is born with. You take kids, for example, they love unconditionally. They love with no alternative motive. And I think society has broken us, in a sense. Society has broken us down that I'm gonna treat people how they treat me. I'm gonna act in a way like this because this is my viewpoint, whether religious or political. I'm going to be this way because I reside with this certain racial or ethnic group. Or, there's so many views and things that have been placed on us that has broken us, that has conformed us to worldly endeavors. Because in essence, when a horse is born or horses come into this world, or just even wild horses in general, no matter if they're born in captivity or they're born in the wild, horses will not allow you to put a saddle on their back. They won't. They kick and they buck and they scream, they do all this to pretty much get this saddle off their back. Because horses were not meant to have a saddle for people to ride on top of. Now that's just in nature, So when they put these saddles on these horses, they're conditioning the horse's mind. They have to start when they're young. So therefore, when they get big and strong, and even they do it on older horses too, that the horse is controlled. The horse is refrained from kicking. They put the chit in the mouth. That is called that chit in that horse's mouth is painful to the horse. That's why when you turn a horse, that hurts. So the horse turns his head this way, or you pull to the left, the horse turns his head to the left. So the saddle horse is all about conditioning. It's all about saying, hey, this is your job and this is what you're going to do. And this is all brought onto you by mankind. This is their opinion of what a horse should do. A horse should be able to be saddled. A horse should be able to be rode. A horse should follow your directions. And if not, there's consequences to be faced. Now, the reason why I'm talking about this, the reason why I bring this subject up is a lot of us have had a saddle placed on us. And I'm talking figuratively, not literally. What saddle has been placed on your psyche, or placed on your emotions, or placed on your life, to where you had to conform to what's going on? And I get it. I understand people. We are in a world to where we have to do certain things, or we've been taught to do certain things in order to accomplish certain things, or whatever, right? But in its natural habitat, a lot of things that we've picked up along the way of living, it's not something that we naturally have to have. It's not something that we're innately have to have in order to, live out our lives in harmony, or live out our lives with a sense of peace or a sense of happiness. And the reason why I put this show together is because the saddle is metaphorically speaking, is something that is placed on a horse to condition them to do the things that they are taught to do. So riddle me this, my listeners. What saddle or what mechanism or what tool or what information have been given to you that has placed a saddle on your mind or placed a saddle on your life? And now that because it's been done for years and years and years and years, you think that, well, that's just the way things are. Did you not think that you are supposed to roam this world with freedom, to not to be molested by so many systems and mechanisms to make you think a certain way? Just like with that horse is like, no, when it's first born, the horse is not going to allow you to get on his back. A horse is not allowing you to put anything on it that's man-made. And we do it so often, and we've done it so regularly, that we have been conditioned to believe that this is the way life is. We have been conditioned to believe that that's just the way things go. And I really want you guys to think about this. I want you to take time to think about it. What information or what tools or what mechanisms have you picked up along the way that now you feel as if you can't live without? Think about that for a second. Just as in the horse's case, sometimes things will be placed on you so regularly or so often, and in the beginning you'll refuse, and then guess what? Sooner or later you adapt to it. Sooner or later you start looking at it as normal. You look at it as, this is just how life is. Well, I'm here to challenge my listeners. It's time for you to peel that saddle off your back. It's time for you to peel a lot of mechanisms off of you and perform in your natural state. Stop allowing the society to determine what saddle is supposed to go on you. There's so many things, and we can dive down that rabbit hole and talk about all the many things that we've picked up as our own, and we believe to be factual, when in essence we're just a product of a certain environment. We're a product of a certain situation. We picked up these ideas as wholehearted truths, when in essence we just been programmed and dumbed down to believe them to be truths. It's kind of like when you think about a captive elephant. They take a young elephant and they take a stump and they drive it in the ground. They tie that elephant to that stump. And as a young elephant, that elephant pulls and pulls and pulls and pulls and pulls. And because the elephant is not of mature state, it's not of its full strength, it can't pull the stump out the ground. It can't pull that stake away from the ground. And eventually that young elephant stops pulling. That young elephant just it takes its defeat and it recognizes that, hey, I'm not strong enough to pull this stake out the ground. And as years go by, the trainer constantly ties this elephant to this stake, and this elephant grows into massive 2 tons and muscular and tusk and all these different things. And that stump still is holding that elephant as he was as a child. That's why so many things in this world is introduced to our kids at a young age, to put that saddle on their mind, to put that saddle on their emotions, to put that saddle on their feelings. And they grow on into their young adult in their adult lives with that same saddle and looking at it from a child's point of view, because they don't have the strength, they don't have the maturity, they don't have the know-how, they don't have the life experiences to peel them away and operate in their natural state. There's so many things that we picked up along the way, so many bad habits, so many bad emotions, so many bad attitudes, because we adopted them at a young age, and that saddle is still carrying around on us as we live our lives in adulthood. So how many saddles do you have on you? How many things do you have hindering you? How many things have you adopted as fact? And now you operate them in your truth today, when in essence, had not you been introduced so young, had not you been dealt that hand from the beginning, you wouldn't feel that way. You wouldn't respond that way. You wouldn't act that way. There's so many things. If you guys go back and look at my shows, when we talk about Big Boys Don't Cry, there's so many men that dealing with emotional feelings and things of trauma, of dealing with themselves in adulthood, because since day one, boys are taught that big boys don't cry, big boys don't show emotion. Emotion is a sign of weakness when it comes to men. And as we grow old and we grow into adulthood, now we still have that same feeling. It's hard to pull that stake out the ground because it's been locked on our minds since we were young. What saddle are you possessing? What do you have on your back? What have you been taught to believe as truth? And now you realize and you start opening your eyes to new ideas and new things and new information. Now you realize that that stake has no power over you. Now you realize that saddle has no power over you, that you're operating not in your natural habitat. Now you're operating not in your natural capacity. And it's hard to pull it off. It's hard to pull it off to the point where even when you're talking about a horse situation, a horse won't even allow you to get on their back without a saddle now. Even when you're talking about back in the days when the Native Americans and the Aboriginals of this country, they didn't have saddles because you know why? They didn't have to break the horse. They treated the horse with respect. They treated the horse as an entity of life, not as a tool to use throughout this world, not as a tool to make them go faster. They didn't have to break a horse, right? It's kind of like when you're talking about your kids. There's so many things that we can engage with our children at a young age that if we work on it and we treat them like a human entity as opposed to treating them like a object, as a inferior, as we learn to empathize and teach as opposed to yell and beat, a lot of times the children will come out better. I've been looking at a lot of different studies because of those who know my goal is to homeschool my kids. And I've been looking at the Finland's education system. And one of the things they said they did away with in Finland was standardized test, multiple choice test. And there's so many people, so many pro educators here in this country. Look at Finland. Well, how do you give them a test if you don't give them multiple choice? The students of Finland said we have to know the answer. See, and that's the saddle that's being placed, or at least that's one of the saddles that's being placed on our children's mind at an early age, that a test is multiple choice, that life has multiple choice. Instead of teaching them how to get to the right answer, instead of teaching them not to memorize certain things, teaching them how to get the information. And we can go, again, we can talk about education, we can talk about mental health, we can talk about emotional trauma. But my main goal of this show is I want you to take inventory of what saddles have been placed on your mind, what saddles have been placed on your life that you allow a stake to be driven into the ground that holds you to it from your childhood now long into your adulthood. What things have you picked up along the way to be unadulterated fact because that's what you were told as a kid? Do you still believe in Santa Claus? Do you still believe in the Easter Bunny? Just a few things I want to bring to your attention, that you have so many saddles that have been placed on you. You have so many things that have been a burden on your life because they said so, because they said that's the way life is. But I challenge my listeners, I challenge you to peel that saddle off your mind. I challenge you to peel that saddle off your emotions. I challenge you to peel that saddle off your attitude. I challenge you to peel that saddle off your opinions of others and stop prejudging situations based on the way you were taught as a child. There's so many things that we can unpack. There's so many things that we can bring to light as far as what's been taught to us and what's made us be dumbed down in this society where we think this is this or that is that. When are you going to develop your own righteous thinking? When are you going to, go inside and go into your higher power, go into prayer, whatever you may choose to use, whatever tool or mechanism you choose to use? When are you going to learn to stop being so judgmental? When are you going to learn to be open and be empathetic to so many situations just because that's not the way you were taught? Right? We have been placed with so many hindrances on our lives, and we picked them up and we've adopted them as that's the way life is. Right? And in closing, I want to go into this thing and just to talk about how these saddles are placed and how our ideologies about life have been placed on us, that things are starting to rapidly change. And people can't understand why we're going through so many different changes in life. It's because of the saddles that's been placed on us. A lot of our kids are being raised by the tablet and the cell phone. A lot of our kids have being raised by the internet and YouTube. A lot of our kids are not being raised by true parenthood, true love, true compassion. And it's a sad day in this America when you look at it. I know you've all seen the viral video of the Rocky Mount, North Carolina substitute teacher. And there's so many mixed views about who's right, who's wrong, who's this, who's that. And I don't want to go left and just dive down in that so hard, but I just wanted you guys to understand that when you uphold a child in their wrongdoing, no matter the situation, when you make it okay to be disrespectful to an elder, when you make it okay to get within an adult's personal space, when you make it okay to say what you want to say out of your mouth, and you lack the accountability to call a spade, and then when the shit hits the fan, oh, that was a child. Well, that child, in my humble opinion, was not operating in a child capacity. That child put themselves in an adult situation, and they reap the consequences of that. Now, take it as you may. Oh, it couldn't have been my child. Well, you probably are the problem. Because we all know that in this world, in this life, in this society that we live in, we have so much going on. And the number one thing that we have is the lack of respect for others. It's the lack of respect of our elders. And that's because now in the modernized world that we live in, we made it okay to let kids be included on adult conversations. We made it okay to talk bad about other people in front of children. We made it okay to cuss and treat our kids like our friends. And then we produce these kids that we have today, and not all of them are bad. I'm not here just to downplay, because we have some great kids in this young generation. We have some great model kids in this young generation, but we have a lot of them that lack respect, lack morality, lack values, lack the ability to shut up when grown folks talking. And I blame a lot of these parents who co-signing this student. I don't care what whatever the case may be. If a child is being blatantly disrespected to a teacher, imagine what that child is doing at home. Imagine what that child is allowed to do in spaces where no one can see, when the phone is not out, when the camera is not rolling. Because a saddle has been placed on that, hey, you got to treat these children with respect. Hey, you can't put your hands, you can't chastise or discipline. Because the reason why people feel so bad, because they don't even put their hands on their children. They don't correct them children when they're wrong and they're being blatantly disrespectful. They're allowed to do these things. And that's the saddle that's been placed. Oh, these children got free range. They can decide whether they want to be a boy or girl. They can decide if they want to be, there's so many different things. We've given that free range to children. We've put that stake in the ground as children. Now, as they go up into their teenage years, now, okay, the gloves are off now. You can't go back and you can't unspoil a child, as my grandmother used to say, because that saddle has been placed on a long time ago. And now these children operate in the capacity that they feel like they're right, regardless of what an adult has to say. Oh, you old, or this, or that. And we wonder why we go through the situations that we do in this country today. We wonder why we have a heightened level of violence when it comes down to our younger generation, because that saddle has been placed on us a long time ago. When they broke down the family, when they allowed so many single mothers to raise children on their own. And I'm a product of a single mother household, but my mother did not play the radio when it came down to respect. And it didn't matter if it was her. It didn't matter if it was my neighbor. It didn't matter if it was my teacher, my principal. It didn't matter if it was the bus driver. It didn't matter if it was the janitor. You are a child and you shall stay in a child's place. But that's long gone now. Now we giving the children a vote. We giving the children a say-so at the table. We letting the children in on the conversation. That's the saddles that been placed on our kids nowadays. And when are we going to realize that we have so many things that we can fix individually within our lives that can make this world a better place? And I challenge my listeners. It's time for you to unpack some of this new age modernized thinking. It's time for you to unpack, to allow your children to do what they want to do and say what they want to say and be what they want to be. Because in essence, we're headed for self-destruction. As Public Enemy once said, we're headed for self-destruction. In so many ways, and so many avenues have been opened up, and they've opened that Pandora's box to now it's hard to close it back. Now you can't go back and unspoil that child. Now you can't go back and backpedal. Right? If you're allowing these children in adult conversations, and then they start operating as adult, and then when they get them hands put on, oh, that's a child. I can't tell. How many saddles have been placed on your life? When are you going to learn that, hey, life is not what the world is telling you. Life is what you tell yourself. If you would do your grandmother the way that this child did this teacher, or you allow this child to talk to their mother, their father, you allow these children to talk to their peers in that way, and then you expect them not to be treated as such, then you need to hush your mouth. Because had that child hit an officer, had that child walked up on an officer and that officer slammed the back out, put handcuffs on and threw in the back of the car, what would have been said? Yeah, you would have marched and you would have did this and you would have did that. But guess what? That officer would have had a paid leave under investigation, and then sooner or later they would have came off leave and went back to work, and that child would have had a mark on their record for obstruction of an officer or assault on an officer. And then what? That's what we have to understand. There's so many things, and that rabbit hole goes deep. And I just want my listeners to understand that there's so many things that you've been taught in this world. There's so many things that's been placed on your mind to be right. When you sit down and think and have a real internal conversation with yourself, and have a truthful conversation with yourself, and hold yourself truly accountable for all your actions, then you'll realize that we got a lot of things to fix. Accountability is something that has pretty much null and void in today's world. Everybody wants to blame someone else for the problems that they incur. A lot of people, I'm not saying all of them, but a lot of people want to point that finger. A lot of people want to say I'm a victim of circumstances. A lot of people say I'm a product of my environment. A lot of people say it's the white man's fault. A lot of people say this or say that or say this. My dad won in my life, or this or that and the third. What that has to do with the price of tea in China? What does that truly have to do with who you are as a person? Because a lot of times the upbringing, the things that are being taught, the values, the morals, the respect, allowing a child to indulge in adult conversations. And then when they try to place themselves in adult conversation outside of the home, and they get treated like an adult because they're acting as one, now the whole world is in an uproar. And I really want you guys to understand, I want you guys to get this, that you gotta unpack some stuff. You gotta pull those governors off your mind. You gotta pull those limitations off your life. You gotta be honest and open about what's really going on in this world. Because that saddle's been placed on your mind so often and so repeatedly and so often that it's hard to take it off when you're an adult. It's hard to fix it later on. All right? And that's all I got for y'all today. I really want you guys to understand that there's so many limitations that have been placed on us by society and the world standard of living. So many things have changed. So many things have transpired in this world that we got to find a way to peel it off. And it starts at the foundational level of life. It starts when you start putting good things into your children. You started putting those morals, values, and respect into your children at a young age. You can't wait till they get to middle school and try to correct them then. You can't. It's kind of like a quote that my grandmother used to always tell me. She would say, Chucky, it's all right to be a young fool because you got time to change. You got time to, better your way. But once you become an old fool, now you're set in your way. There's no turning back. You can't unspoil a child. You can't unpack a lot of stuff if you let it linger on too long. And I challenge my listeners to nip it in the bud, especially when it comes down to our young kids, especially when it comes down to our future. And I hope you get this, and I hope you don't feel too offended, because I'm being real. There's so many things that we can work on, and it starts with our children, because these children one day are going to grow into adults. And if you try to speed up that process, there's going to be consequences and repercussions to be faced behind it. And I truly want you guys to work on your family. Sit down and have conversations with your children, and don't be afraid of what they say. A lot of times parents don't want to listen to their children because, hey, you're a child, you do what I say because I said so. That's the model I came up under. My mom, I didn't have a voice. I didn't have a say so. And I think we've given our children too much free range to where they have a say so in so many situations, right? So I challenge you all, have those conversations, but let the authority figure know who's the authority figure. Let the kids know who's in control. Stand up, be firm, be fair, and don't allow this new movement of life, this new whole movement in this country where we're allowing children to dictate what they want. I don't want that to eat. That's crazy to me. People will say that's harsh parenting. Guess what? I wasn't big on capital or corporal punishment on my kids, on my older boys. I wasn't big on them. When they were young, I was. When they were young, if they got out of line, I instantly corrected it. But as they got older, the corporal punishment lacked off because I've already set the foundation. I already drove that stake in the ground. So as my boys got up to 10, 11, 12, 13, up into their teenage years, I didn't have to put my hands on them anymore because they knew. They knew that, hey, Dad, it's many times. I told the story before. My son like to burnt the school down. He was in the 3rd grade. By then, he knew he was wrong. He even did a video. He talked about, please don't call my daddy. But I didn't. You know what? I didn't chastise him. I took him to the burn center at Grady Hospital, downtown Atlanta. and let him see a lady that was 90% burned where her eyelids were gone. And I remember overhearing him talking later on, say, I'm never playing with a lighter again. There are certain things and certain elements that you place into a child's life when they're young, when their minds are like Play-Doh and you can mold it. Because once they get to a certain age, hey, it's hats off. It's out the window. That ship has sailed. So I challenge you to take hold of your kids and take hold of your life and unpack some things and pull those saddles off your emotions and pull those saddles off your mind. All right. So y'all make sure y'all go check me out. Mr. Be Great Today on TikTok, YouTube, and Fanbase. Great Today INC on IG, and On Air with Mr. Be Great Today on Facebook. I love you all. And you already know. Be great today. Peace.